quite often we have clients that are in crisis, and I had a client who had to be hospitalized for trying to commit suicide. So I made a promise to her that I would go see her today. So I apologize for not being here, but I think she really needed to see me. So that was a choice I had to make. She's doing better. She's safe. She's in the hospital and they're trying to take care of her. She's safe. So sometimes with the teenagers, the only way you can get them to go is if you promise to visit them. Which is fine with me. I would much rather visit someone than, to have something horrible happen to us. So that's where I spent my time.
How old is she, Tracy?
16.
16.
16. It's a very, very, very hard life. Lots of abuse and trauma, so it's all catching up to it. So I do apologize, but I felt as if it would be a much better idea for me to be there with her at that moment. So if you all, those of you that were here last time, if you remember that I had spent quite a bit of time and then we had gotten to the Lotus Sutra, chapter 25, and we read it, which was wonderful to hear it read out loud. But I think I overestimated how much time I had. So by the time we were finished reading it, we had run out of time and we missed that component that I think is so important, which is the group time. I really think it's important, especially at this time of day where a lot of people have been sitting and then eating or feeling very tired. And so it's good to get in a group and to be able to talk and let them know, what your thoughts are. So what I said that we would do today is we would spend the session getting together in the groups. I have copies of the Lotus Sutra. I know last time I didn't bring any, and then we kind of didn't have any. So if anyone has their own copy, it's chapter 25, and it's the exact same one that we read last month. I do have extra copies here if anyone needs any. I just ask that we make sure that we at least have each group has one. And I thought this would be a great time for you all to get together in a group, share what you know about the Lotus Sutra, read it again if you need to, if you haven't been able to read it within the past month. I know our lives all get very busy sometimes. Then in the group, I just ask that you all take turns just summarizing what this sutra, what you believe it means, any of the deeper meanings you believe in this particular chapter, any questions you have. I know some people are saying they find it a very difficult chapter, so there may be someone else in your group that can share their interpretation. And I just think it's a good time for you guys to all get to share a particular sutra chapter together, and then we'll come back and have time for everyone to be able to share out. So I'm hoping that will also help. I've heard at lunch I was eavesdropping, and I hear quite a bit of people are a little bit nervous about the presentation coming up. So this will be great practice. So after you're in your group and you all discuss and summarize and talk about some of the deeper meanings of this particular chapter, then you all as a whole group can come up and just share a couple of minutes what you came up with, or you can throw someone in your group underneath the bus and make them get up. It's completely up to you all how you want to do this. I'm sure there's a bell I can ring when time's up. Does anyone know how much time I have? Till 2:10 or? Does anyone have this? I think it's until 2:10. I think it's until 2:10. So I figure if we spend about 25 minutes in the group, 25 to 30, and then the last 10 minutes we can share out. Any questions?
Are you going to keep track of the time?
I will keep track of the time, so you guys can just completely share with each other what you need to share. And I do want to go ahead and share ahead of time that next, well, never mind, I'll share that at the end. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Do do you all want to get into groups on your own, or do you want me to put you in a group? I think last time you all did a very good job putting yourselves in a group. Are you okay with that this time as well? Okay.
I think we can do it
I think so too. Any questions at all? No? You guys are quiet. I hope you get more talkative in your small group. And I don't have a lot of copies, so if a lot of people don't have copies, I would suggest making sure each person in the group has
Is
one.
it the same copy we have last
It's
month?
really simple.
So leave it in.
And you can be in the same group or you can be in a different group. Completely up to how you all would like to.
Certainly, certainly.
I'll need to you, and I know you have a couple guys that maybe share with
I
me.
love reading though. So good. So we can share.
Needs a copy too.
All right, let me turn this off.
Same.
Interesting, because in here anyway, the beginning, everyone was kind of quiet and kind of looking at the paper and reading. And then little by little, and then by the end, it was amazing the insights that came out from it. And I really do think you can only get that from a smaller group. And then that builds up the confidence, so then you're able to talk about it in a larger group. But something off topic that I don't know if anyone else out there knew this existed. There was a group that, there was a word in the sutra that we hadn't heard of used in this particular way. It was chakra with an S. And so we found this fantastic dictionary. Have any of you heard of this dictionary before? This is the website right here. And you just plug in a word, and then it gives us, and not just a sentence, it gave us, if I can pull it up a little bit. Here's the site, and it gave us a really nice history and definition of the word, and I mean, so we were pretty excited. So then I checked out a couple of other words while you all were working very hard, and quite a few words showed up on here with a really nice historical definition as well. So I thought I should put that up there. That could be a good resource, because I know with me quite often when I'm reading certain sutras or things, I get caught up on a word that I'm not familiar with. So I thought this would be a really good information. I want to stop talking because I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. Were there 4 groups? Is that correct? There are 4? Okay. And I don't know if you all decided whether you were just going to have one person talk or whether the whole group was going to come up. But with 4 groups, we only have about 2 minutes per group to give you an idea. That's not a lot of time to talk.
It's perfect because no one gets thrown under the bus too far.
That is very true. So is there a group that would be willing to come up first? Oh, I'll pick. You guys, okay, come on up.
Come up, since I got 2 minutes, I can get over.
Oh, so you're the
with you, but I
assigned, you're the
Well,
assigned person.
Interject, but since you can't,
Because I'm
Okay, here's the first group, if we could all listen carefully.
I guess I'll start with our conclusion, basically, go with that. But it seems that there's 2 parts to this chapter 25. And you can break it down. So much of it talks about, like, we're in some kind of peril, and you can invoke Guan Yin's name. And we kind of align that with somebody who would be a faith follower. There's 2 kinds of followers, faith follower and like a reasoning follower, and that with someone who learn with knowledge or direct experience. And so many of us come into Buddhism as a faith follower, where it's not really direct. It's something that's done to you, not really a direct experience. But so a lot of that faith follower is invoking Guan Yin's name when you're in peril, and he'll come save you, and that kind of thing. Where Cameron brought up that a bodhisattva is really just a mind state. So this is another level. Bodhisattva is really a mind state, and through direct experience, this is when you become a reasoning follower. And you get direct experience, and you realize, Guan Yin is a mind state, and you're invoking, I don't know, something in yourself. And also, it goes into Guanyin compassion and the significance of when the necklace, Guanyin broke the necklace and gave it back. And this signified non-attachment and compassion, giving this back. And it's easy to give back something that you don't want or don't want to accept from someone, but to give something back that's very valuable, this is significant. And Guanyin gave it back to the three jewels, or who was the three jewels? The Bodhisattva of the three jewels, I believe. And that's significant because they gave it back to the lineage of the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So this is giving back to the lineage of Buddhism. So.
It's kind of in a nutshell.
No, you're perfect.
If
Excellent.
that makes any sense.
Excellent. Good job, guys. I'm a clapper. Takes a lot of courage to come up, so thank you for doing that. Does that count as his presentation? That's something we didn't tell.
That's a good example of a presentation. How about that?
All right, next, do you want?
Actually, he would be chosen to do presentation next time.
Oh, you guys, someone else? Oh, or ever, you didn't know that.
Go together. Team effort.
Don't be shy.
What is on your eyeglass? This tag.
In case I don't have enough food, then I can sell it.
Well, as we are reading the notes, since we haven't read it for a while maybe, we found this chakra word in there, S-H-A-K-R-A, which we had to look up, and we found out it means Indra, and I know actually a person that's Japanese that has this name. That's how she found it, through this site, so that teaches us something too, where we can look up Buddhist names and terms. Then what surfaced was that throughout all the reading, these three qualities of this Guanyin Shin came through: fearlessness, wisdom, and compassion. In order to, get to the level to be so compassionate for everything, for everybody, I think possibly the first level would be to have very much wisdom. Fearlessness is another factor, because without fear you cannot help somebody that's experiences fear or pain, and then from there compassion goes. So this Bodhisattva, of course, has no gender. It's a man or woman, as we know from different art statues and presentations that are out there. Then secondly, we found out that Guanyin Shin is manifested in all of us. It can help you if you have faith and if you have that spirit inside of you. If you don't have that spirit, it obviously cannot help anybody. So she lives through us and she works through us. So that's kind of two of the points that we got. And then you will continue.
And then I'm going to read a quote from or a piece of the sutra that ties in with what Tony just said. Those who learn about the self-mastery of her deeds and the power of her spiritual penetrations, as shown in this universal door, and we took the universal door to mean compassion, you should know that the merit and virtue of such people will not be small. There are a few questions that we came up with that Tony already sort of answered, but that I thought were interesting. And I think maybe Don has discussed this in a talk at some point. Anyway, it can be debated, I think. What arises first in a person out of these qualities, fearlessness, wisdom, compassion, which arises first? Is there one that arises first, or do they all come together and overlap? And then the question that Sherry asked, which was really cool, and she got a gold star from.
I just said,
Tracy.
that's a great question.
Yeah. Are we calling on Guan Yin, or are we calling on the qualities, her qualities that we have within ourselves? Which is something that Tony brought up as well. Thanks.
Two more groups.
Well, I think I have talked enough. It's your,
Okay, I'm just standing there.
yeah.
Standing there.
I've talked enough.
I left 2 weeks ago, last month, so I thought I avoided this, and I didn't read. I didn't read this.
Is that why you left?
I didn't. I haven't even read this, so I'm just going to try to give what I got in the 10, 15 minutes outside, and I think I'll compare it to my upbringing in Christianity, because I see this real similar to, you're calling on Kuan Yin, what Christians call the Holy Spirit. I see it as essentially the same thing. I used to think that Kuan Yin was, from my past teaching, I thought Kuan Yin was what they called Kuan Yin, Goddess of Mercy. I thought Kuan Yin was literally a person like I guess you think of Mother Mary in Christianity, that you're praying to this kind of mother figure, I guess. So from standing outside, I gather the first two groups said that this isn't so much a deity, one person, spirit, but this, almost in Star Wars, you call it the Force, this goodness that's within all of us. But I still have some questions, I guess, as far as 2 or 3 pages does continue to give examples. If you're in this position and call, you're going to get saved, and that doesn't seem realistic. People are in bad positions and call for help, and they don't get saved, even if they do believe. Oh God, please help me. So I won't even see this as when you're saying, oh God, you're still giving more of an individual name by saying Kuan Yin. But that's just what I've got out here. Go ahead, man.
I think it depends upon what you want to perceive and you want to think. I think that the previous group said it all, a lot of that already. One of them here is, realistically, we don't get into trouble because we get into trouble. That's a different story by itself. But we get into trouble because we do something in order to get into trouble. The spirit of this one is, from what I see, is before you do something, you look inside yourself and you see that killing, stealing is no good. So if you don't steal, you don't get into trouble. Would you be thankful? No, the law is not after you. So that is what you do before you get into trouble. And also in another aspect of that one here is naming, is that we have seen a lot of people who is poor, come from a poor country. They don't have enough food to eat, they don't have enough clothes to wear. But are they in trouble? Are their mind kind of troubled? They don't, because it's their peace of mind. They don't see that having no enough food is a hindrance. They don't see that have not enough nice clothes or car is a hindrance. Deep down in their mind, they are at peace with themselves. There is no other kind of, those are another form of shackling, being shackled. So depends upon, what you can get out of this. Yes, there are some there are some real, we talk about real bodhisattva. And do you remember many years ago there was an airplane who got into trouble and get down in the Potomac River when it's very cold? And before the people who get paid to do the saving, like lifesaver and things like that, what happened? Do you recall? Somebody who did not get paid jumped into the icy water and saved those people. Is he a bodhisattva or she? So in America we call it hero. So that's the embodiment of the bodhisattva. It's not necessarily a people that you can touch or feel, but that is a action.
I was driving this week to work and I was going through Alton. I live in Illinois. I went around a corner and I heard this, and I had a blowout. So I wasn't sure until I kind of truck start to wobble, and I pulled off the side of the road and I got on my truck and I had a blowout. And I was in the parking lot of a We Fix Flat Tires. That's where I was, and the tire was run, but they sold used tires. So for $45, I got a tire. And when I had my cell phone in my lap, when I got out of my truck, it fell out of my lap. I didn't know it. So it was in the road, and I went in. I was going to use my phone. I went out in my truck. I couldn't find it. I had someone come out to my truck and dial my number, so I thought maybe it was in the floor, I could find it. I couldn't. So I walked, when I said I was right in front of it, I was maybe 40 feet that I drove. But I walked through down the road at 40, 50 feet, and I didn't see my phone. And I walked back, and I saw my cell phone laying in the parking lot, and no one had run over it. So, I don't know, was that some karmic thing that I had to have a blowout? But if I had to, at least
Just go in the right place.
it was at the right place. So I don't know the karma to that one, but there was some karma there, wasn't there?
I always think that this is just my opinion, your mind state as well. Like you're perceiving it as, oh, I had a blowout, but look where I was, where someone else could perceive it as, oh my gosh, do you know what I mean? So I think so much of, when you were talking about being saved, you might be thinking of that from a physical sense, of someone physically saving, where I think so much of it is a mental saving from suffering. And then the more you practice and the more you read and the more you really work on that, so many physical things that happen to us don't necessarily go to the mental suffering part.
I have a
Does that
question.
make sense?
I have a question for Mike. Do you consider that as a good karma or a bad karma?
I think it's maybe what we talked about when Juan said that if you put a little salt in more water, it's not.
So your incident, do you consider your
been.
incident a good karma or bad
I
karma?
consider it a karma that had to happen, and maybe something I'd done good had offset it to where, I drive around St. Louis, I live in Edwardsville, I could have been, and I'm rehabbing a house off Telegraph Road, I could have been, an hour and a half from home, call a tow truck. It would have been a big deal. I would have lost my phone, I lost my phone, it would have been a,
It
big
could be
deal.
bad, much worse, right, than a tire.
Yeah, it took the whole thing was 20 minutes and I was back on the road. That was just something I brought up because I thought it was it happened, but literally it happened.
I have seen, and this is a true story, that my friend got a tire blown, so he put his car onto the sidewalk, a highway, what do you call it, shoulder, on the shoulder, and somebody stopped the car and tried to help him. And he was very grateful for the person who stopped and tried to help him. But the person turned around and talked to him and said, "Don't worry about me. You take whatever part you want, and I take whatever part I want." Can you figure that out?
I take whatever part I want.
With a car.
I was not there, trust me, I was not there.
That's it.
Oh, excellent job.
Thank you, Penny.
The last group?
You sure you didn't call it one of the machines?
I know we're running kind of quick on time, if anyone has any questions, this would be a great time where we are start actively using that blog. You know, because there is a section on that blog where it says questions and someone can put out there and then we can continue this conversation, not just once a month. Okay.
So many good things said, and anything I say is none of my idea. It came nearly entirely from the mind of Conju. So we were sort of like the cheaters. We had like the good new monastic with us to help us understand. So primarily, I think very quickly we talked about how the idea of being saved is not at all, as many of us have said, you've already said already, it's not something that's external. It's something that happens internally. It's not like, this is not a description of magic. Come on in, help me, and then poof, there's a cloud of smoke. But, like Mike's story about, and the question about like what happens to those people who don't get saved, makes me think of the story that you told about the person with the boat, is that the person had a shipwreck, and I'm going to mangle the story, I'm so sorry. And they're shipwrecked, and they're floating on a little stick somewhere out in the ocean, and they're like, oh, they're going to pray to Buddha, like, save me, and a boat comes along. And he says, no, they throw down the thing, and no, thank you. And the boat goes on, and then some other method, maybe there's a helicopter in this version, and there's somebody who paddles by in a canoe, and I'm like, no, I'm going to wait for a Buddha to save me. And so it's the going in, the bodhisattva, and that this awareness, it's something that's really internal, and that we have to have the capacity to see it, much in the way like a colorblind person can't see green maybe or blue because they're missing that element, but that the whole, maybe not the whole point, but a significant part of why we practice is so we can cultivate the awareness and the awakeness so that we can see this quality and recognize that that it's everywhere, like in ourselves and even in the person who causes us trouble, which was another story that for the sake of time I will leave off because we've heard a few of those. But I just thought it was really, Shifu teaches us to meditate and says, okay, if you have to close your eyes, okay, but what I keep remembering is that some of the primary advice has been like, we sit with our eyes open because that's how we face life. We want to have facing the life with that clear awareness and that feeling of being awake. And Don talks, in his much more esoteric and hard to understand talks, but about a fundamental turning of consciousness. So we turn our consciousness to have this awareness of the preciousness and the necessity to practice. And that for us as teachers, in the second part where, starting on page 2, there's the little bit that begins, if they must be saved by someone in the body of a Buddha, and then there's this long list. It seemed to me when I read it last month that it talks to us as teachers, or as possible teachers, that we have to see what the person needs and not go in with an idea of like, I'm going to teach you this. That you have to go in and like really sensitively listen and bring that quality of the bodhisattva to whatever is happening. But it has to be based on like what that person must be, then that's where they'll see the learning. So maybe you're not the person. Sometimes you try to convince somebody, but if they need a farmer and I'm not a farmer and I don't wear the right clothes or I don't have the right words, then the farmer will go and maybe miss that lesson because I didn't know how to deliver it. And it just wasn't the right time. So that, and then also just the last thing from your story is like that in the midst of desperation, like the tired story, in the midst of desperation, the teaching appears. And we just need to be continually grateful for it.
I'll just put on the blog next because I know, Don, you're up in now or in 5? He's like, I don't know. It's 2:25. So I think 5 minutes and then you're 2:30 done. Thank you guys. Wonderful.